All right, so now that Weiss is in full swing, we are back with videos and we are here to stay. Starting off with the first video, we're going to talk about Nikkei. Is Nikkei good? Is it meta? How did PGH Weiss's Carmen win with it? Well, I'm here to answer all your doubts on Nikkei as someone who has also played this set fairly extensively over the last 2 weeks. I can talk about why I think people say it's good and why people may have the misconception that it's just horrible as well. Nikkei is Weiss's attempt to make some sort of control deck, right? It attempts to outgrind the opponent with specific cards and try to be fairly good against certain things in the current state of the game. It tries to abuse certain mechanics only it has, and the whole point is like it tries to force the opponent to play out of their normal patterns. So, just talking about it from the top a little bit, our key cards are going to be this level 3 Alice. This is an important piece. This 2-0 event. And this 3-2 Sin over here. So let's talk about why the progression Nikkei, where its strong points and weak points and stuff like that. Its weakest point is level 0. Its level 0s are filled with more utility cards. This is Carmen's PGH Weiss deck. He won Rosemont with this deck, so we're using this as an example. He has utility cards at 0. Most of these cards are there to help you find other cards and progress through the game till you get to level 2. Your level 1, it's just an advantage engine. It helps you gain resources and get selectively what you need from the waiting room. You're trying to abuse the mechanic of this Rappy whenever you play climaxes to give this Modernia the effect to get what you need. Also moves through your deck. More deck speed since your advantage engine doesn't have deck speed. This is your only clock plus in the set currently. That's actually universal. Very easy to use, on demand. It also moves to the deck and lets you check the top 2 cards deck. Your goal is to abuse these 2 cards at the right times so that you are able to pressure your opponent. Probably explain why these counters are in here. An anti-change counter. This is my personal belief. If your set has a level 1-0 anti-change counter, I think everyone should be running one of, unless you cannot maintain board at all. But this is definitely a deck that tries to maintain as much board as possible. Why? Because when you're winning, you can threaten your opponent's early outs, the level 3s that come out early, or when you're losing, it can also help there. But the earlier this anti-level counter is, the better it becomes. So, and this is fairly cheap. And in terms of this set, Nikkei is one of the few sets that actually play with a low hand count. So, really good. Jackal is your main brainstorm. She attacks. She rests 2 cards. Let's explain some interactions there. A lot of you can literally normally when you tap 2 cards, they're stuck there, and when you play your climaxes, like especially when you're running standby, it sucks, right? Because standby calls the card out to the back row or wherever you want it, right? So that's where this the classification Rappy, you can rest her with this, and then when you play climax, she pops back to hand. So it doesn't take up a slot. You can rest this maiden because what's going to happen is you can sack her to grab cards in your waiting room. So you're kind of using these cards to leverage their abilities to be reusable and replayable and all that stuff to your advantage. So you can actually attack with this and rest your back row and then use your back row. This is just a memory kick counter. This helps you get rid of pesky cards. There's been arguments that you can play a 3500 counter and other counters in the set because your early play can move cards away. I think this is more on a player thing. What decks are you trying to target? If there's something you want to kick to memory to shut off certain conditions, this is very good, right? Like this can be used against let's say Bochi the Rocks finisher, right? Where at the end of the attack, do something. This stops those because it goes to memory. So this counter is debatable. I just think the mandatory counter is this one here, in my personal opinion. 2-1 bouncer. This is basically you're dealing with Shauna. You're dealing with mirror matches. You're dealing with pesky cards like Neg Soul and stuff like that, like Yuna or Sora. Yuna from Sao's Anniversary, Neg 2 Soul, Battle Point Cross, that kind of stuff. That is where this card comes in handy. Also, there's really cool, neat features. Like if you had triggered a climax in the very beginning, you're not in a rush to pay it out because this card will get it out for you. It also can buff power to help you get over things as well. So it's a multi-purpose card. If you want to, loop this, you can use it. It goes to stock. You can then try to brainstorm with this card right here. If you fail to get it, you can try to get it with that. And you can reuse it if like someone has like 2 anti-burn Yujis on the field. This is mainly for the mirror match, in my personal opinion. No events. You don't have to play this. It's like what decks. When you build a deck, there's the core, and then there's added things you can add to like, kind of like, how to say this, to be good against certain other decks. Like what matches you want to be good against, what matches you don't care about. So this helps you win the mirror match because this 3-0 event counter is very strong. So this lets your opponent can't play events. It may hit other decks, but I personally think this is mainly for the mirror match. This lets you check the opponent's 2 cards. You can also confirm weird things to see if damage will stick based on your other cards. Sin, it's your global 15. It also rests the opponent's cards. So like take note here that I said Nikkei is about grinding out your opponent. So how Sin helps in that aspect is when the opponent's starting to run low on resources, they may want to use their backer or something. You can rest that card so they're unable to do it, like a brainstorm or something like something that can rest and do things. That like for example, Bang Dreams 2-1 that changes to the 3-2 Dorothy finisher. I think her name is. It's Dorothy, I believe. That or Dolores, I think is her name. You can rest that card so it can't rest itself. You can rest their 2-1 so they can't draw. It just rests cards, like before they can. So it stands and then rests them. So it means they can't stand for that turn. Basically, is what this is saying. Also, like decks, like let's say your opponent's being rushed and they play their level 3 finisher in the back row, and it is a healer. This is where this comes in handy. Is you can rest that. Now they lost the finisher. So it has some multi-purpose uses here. The damage is negligible, but there are times where your opponent may barely survive, and you can burn them 1 or 2. Right, rest to level 3, burn 2. Rest to level 0s or 1 soul hitters and burn 1. Modernia, it's your main source of finishing. Ironically, in this set, the set has barely any finishing power because it's supposed to grind out the opponent. Lets you free call cards from your hand. Pretty good. But the main reason why we're playing this is in tandem with this 3-0 counter. So now we can talk about this. This is one of the main things that make this deck work as well. This is threatening your opponent, right? This counter is basically saying, I got to think about how I'm going to play my finishing turn because I can either negate 1 attack, right? Because 6 soul, right? So if this hits a level 3, if you were going to eat 8 to 9 damage already, you were going to lose. So you take 1 damage so you don't eat like 6 plus, right? The second effect is you can send this Modernia to memory and rest one of your opponent's cards. For 0 stock, that's pretty good. So this works really nicely when things like this happen, right? Like pay 5 rest. This doesn't require any stock, so you don't need stock for this. So this really does help in that aspect. I think this is one of the things that make Nikkei strong is that it plays into the grind where, turning off one of your opponent's finishers is actually insane. And of course, if they get rid of the Modernia and you can't use the rest effect, like there's that plus 6 soul, right? So it's doing something relevant that your opponent has to think about. We're gonna discuss Biscuit really quick. It's your finisher. You only run 2, and you're probably like, whoa, man, 2 finishers. Like, are you crazy? No, it's not the case. Biscuit is not a main purpose point in the deck. Basically, she's just there to heal. If you need extra finishing power, she is the combo with the standby. You can try to finish with her, but it's not really necessary. She's mainly there because she has Encore. She'll generally survive, and she can just keep healing. Look, ditch a card to heal. That's pretty cheap. So that's all about outgrinding, right? You have your early play healer here, and you have another healer here. So let's talk about what people would consider the main point in deck. This Alice, insane. I do think that the deck might be a little bit overhyped from I see comments in Discord, I see other people talk about it, I hear other people talk about it. I think the deck might be a little bit overhyped, but it is not bad. It is solid, and Alice definitely is a main key standpoint in this deck. Why Alice is good? Alice heals to hand, so there's shenanigans you can do there. It also is a 4 more early play healer, so it's easy to summon. Let's talk about how you can abuse this mechanic. Things like this, right? You can play Rappy, you can play this as your like second and third, play some other card, and your fourth card is Alice. Then you can sack this to grab another Alice or a card you want. And that way you're not negging cards in your hand, you're utilizing the effects to better sculpt your hand and progress the game state. And then this also can bounce back the hand, so you can meet the requirements and they disappear and they add to your hand. It's a ditch a Nikke card from your hand, a character from your hand, and heal the top card of clock. So what this means is, like, if there's something you really want, but your hand is too good, and but you want a clock, you clock that card, you draw 2, and you just grab it back with Alice, and whatever the 2 cards you draw after, like really trash, you can just get rid of them. Other things is you can use this Alice to set up. Your goal, if no one's interrupting you, like decks like Overlord and stuff, your goal is to get this 3/2 Sin out in the back row, right? This helps your Alice maintain power. So you can ditch the Sin and you can heal, and that's how you can, get your board set up. This Modernia is your another prime target because, so why is this standby used than other cards? Like, let's talk about it real quick. I know I'm going around the place, but like, the point is standby allows you to abuse the transition between 2 to 3. If you were playing any other variant that wasn't running standby with this rest counter, right? This Modernia can only hit board at level 3. It means that you would either have to get the level 3 first, try to kill the opponent, and then survive their finishing turn if you failed, and then try to kill them again. Versus it being standby, if it's there, it's threatening the opponent in the middle of attacking. So if your opponent, if you're 2-5 and this is on the board, after their first swing, this is now threatened. Like, they're now threatened to worry about this, especially if they do damage, like on attack burn 2 or something, and they level up with that burn they haven't triggered yet. And once they trigger, you can drop that rest counter. So it threatens that transition between 2 to 3. So that is why standby is being played over any other climax, because it allows you to abuse what Nikke has good going for it, which is the Alice, the Sin, the Modernia, and the rest counter. Going back to the Alice, this text here is really strong. When you reverse from your opponent's cards, it can get kicked to the top of the deck, and that means it turns your 3 damage into 2, your 4s into 3s, your 2s into 1s, which means they're more likely to get damage stuck on them, which means that they're more likely to race out of level 2 while you're still level 2 and maintaining your healing and completely grinding out your opponent. So that is the idea, right? So, like, to give you an example, if someone is playing, I don't know, like, we're going to use a generic example of, like, Last Shot Sion, right? On attack, pay 2, ditch 1, burn 4. And then your opponent has, like, 2 of these and some vanilla card on board. You can literally sit there on the first one, drop this, and that takes care of one of your burn 4s. And now where the opponent would have had 5 attacks, they now only have 3. The first one that goes, the swing for 3 on that level 3, and then whatever other card they have, especially if they don't have enough stock for it. So what this does is, like, it kind of incentivizes your opponent to play 3 copies of their finisher, even if they were never going to do it, and make sure they have enough resources to drop their abilities on you. So it like, in the current state of the game of Weiss, if your deck just sits there and gathers resources and does not have a good finisher, like we're talking about the levels of Unbanned Gura, Aki, Mai from Bunny Senpai, these types of finishers that have high instances of damage, even if it may not be as consistent, but it's still a possibility of having an absurd ceiling of damage. you do need to try to do something more throughout the game, and that's what Nikkei is trying to establish. So that's like, the amount of information I wanted to give you on Nikkei when it comes to why it's good, why people play it. It gets ramps up really strong at level 2. It threatens very, strong defensive options at level 3, and it continuously bashes the opponent down with the Alice while healing, and you have some really interesting interactions between different cards. Trying to utilize them to the best of your ability to fit whatever you need to get done when fighting certain sets. Now, why did Nikkei win? Right, like it has shown a lot of popularity, but it hasn't been really winning that much. Uh, some people say it's hard to pilot. That I do think that is part of the issue because it is a very it's not slam no brain climax go right. Something like Seven Deadly Sins was talked about saying like unban this thing was like I slam 3 dudes and slam a climax every single turn and watch the opponent just eat damage. This is not that type of deck. This is you have to think out your plays. What you keep in your hand is very important. I think what ends up happening is a lot of players are very inexperienced and they may keep the wrong cards in their hand or not judge the situation correctly, which leads to Nikkei looking like it is a bad deck. The other thing is what contributes to success is when Kanata Marine. Now, to explain what Kanata Marine was back in the day, this was a deck that clocked itself a lot to get pluses, race itself to level 2, and summon 2 to 3 copies of a level 3. That was really big. This level 3 said you can either add 2 cards to your hand from Waiting Room, or you can stock 2 cards from Waiting Room. Or you can do like vice versa, or you can add 1 to hand and stock 1. It fielded the board with these threats. So back then, you're going to hear the term a lot from Japanese players. They call it an adachi. But what this means is it's a card that when it kills some or it gets reversed, right? The adachi card gets reversed. It's going to remove the level 3 that is higher than the opponent, who's level 2. Also, these anti-change counters, too, were really present back then. I think what happened was when Slime came out, and it was a 2-1, a lot of these effects were useless. So a lot of people took them out of their deck. And what ends up happening now is now you're kind of counteracting that mindset by playing something where you need that, but not everyone was playing outs to it. So you're able to abuse, I guess, the trauma of Slime in a sense. And maybe now that Nikkei just won and it may see more tops going forward, you might be able to see people tech in these cards to deal with it. Because if you remove this Alice completely to where they can't get it anymore, or you have strongish cards to where Alice is barely over and you anti-change their back row so it loses power, it's going to suck for the deck. If you have ways to stop this counter, right? So for example, there's a couple ways to stop this counter. You run, those generic cards are like pay to bounce and get rid of Modernia, meaning this is only a +6 soul counter. You can run things that prevent, events or backups, things like Sword Gram from Sao, or like Freeren's Fern finisher also prevents things like this. You can play Slime, who is completely immune, Hexproof, right? AOT, right? Hexproof, so you can't target the opponent's cards. Those are ways you get around it, but like those things are not really big in the current state of the game, at least what's being shown from the current results and what people think, I believe. Bang Dream is considered the most popular deck in the format. It has a representation of over 20% in a lot of places, if not close to that. So Bang Dream doesn't, like, none of those things really, affect Bang Dream. So this deck kind of goes against the grain to weave its way in and take care of those decks while also attempting to challenge Bang Dream because of this counter. That is my belief on why this deck is good and some of its weaknesses. So this is going to be a series, and I'll try to, like, this is more impromptu, but I'll try to break this down a little bit simpler going forward. We're going to talk about Bang Dream next. So I'm the Tao of Weiss, and I will catch you guys on the next video.